Imagine this. Paris, summer of 1943. The city trembles under the Nazi grip. Execution notices on every corner. Boots thundering through the streets, and then a woman appears. She walks calmly, lips painted red, a handbag in her hand. Inside, there's no perfume, no love letters. There's a secret radio, powerful enough to bring down an empire. Her name, Noor Inayat Khan, an Indian princess, a British spy, dropped by parachute into occupied France with a life expectancy of 6 weeks. Her weapon wasn't a rifle. It was codes, courage, and innocence as her disguise. But Noor wasn't alone. Violette Szabo, young mother, widow, who later, in 1944, would blow up Nazi trains. Odette Sansom, tortured in Ravensbrück, never once breaking. Dozens of women, mothers, daughters, lovers, sent by Churchill with one mission: set Europe ablaze. The Nazis underestimated them. Even their own allies doubted them. But in the darkness, they became the deadliest shadows of the war. Why women? Because nobody suspects a smile with dynamite in its soul. Today we'll retrace their story, from bomb-scarred London to the concentration camps. Real espionage, raw, tense, human. Stay until the end. Because what you'll discover won't just change how you understand World War II, it will change how you see the power of female resistance. June 1940. The Wehrmacht sweeps through France like a flood. Paris falls on the 14th. Maps in Churchill's office show a continent drowned in German grey. Britain stands alone. Churchill gathers his cabinet and utters an order that will go down in history. And now set Europe ablaze. Ahora prendan fuego a Europa. From that phrase, the Special Operations Executive, SOE, is born. Its headquarters set up at 64 Baker Street, London. From the outside, just ordinary offices. But behind the walls, martial arts instructors, demolition experts, and cryptographers prepare a new generation of saboteurs. The SOE doesn't function like a regular army. Its agents wear no uniforms, carry no visible rank, and if captured, can't claim prisoner of war status. They operate in the shadows, slipping into France, Norway, Yugoslavia, Greece. Their mission? Train and arm resistance movements, destroy bridges, cut communication lines, delay convoys. The early years are marked by improvisation and sacrifice. In 1941, French networks are held together by the thinnest threads. Bike couriers, priests hiding weapons under altars, farmers sheltering parachutists in barns. The Gestapo counters with raids, infiltrators, and torture. The average life of a radio operator in France, 6 weeks. But the British discover something crucial. Women, seen as harmless, have a better chance of moving without suspicion. A young woman with a market basket can hide microfilmed messages. A mother with a child can pass checkpoints without being searched. By 1941, the first female volunteers begin training. The process is brutal. In the Scottish Highlands, they learn to kill with a knife, navigate by compass in the rain, jump from planes at night. In training grounds in Hampshire, they build bombs from plastic explosives and pocket watches. In SOE centers, they pound out Morse code until exhaustion, until their fingers bleed. The instructors judge harshly. A note in one file reads, "Shows courage, but talks too much." Another, "Excellent at evasion techniques. Her marksmanship above the male average." The SOE divides its agents into sections. The busiest is Section F, destined for France. Noor Inayat Khan would go there. Later, Violette Szabo would parachute in. Odette Sansom would operate there too. Meanwhile, the Germans don't sit idle. The Abwehr and the Gestapo deploy mobile radio detection units, infiltration teams, blacklists. Every message from Paris to London could cost a life. And yet, the women sign up. They sign papers committing to missions with no guaranteed return. Some act out of patriotism, others out of revenge, others because to them freedom simply isn't negotiable. Churchill's secret army is ready to set Europe on fire, and its most unexpected matches carry women's names. But who was the first to jump into the void with a radio on her back? Moscow, January 1st, 1914. In a modest home on a Russian winter's edge, Noor Inayat Khan is born. Her father, Hazrat Inayat Khan, an Indian Sufi musician descended from the nobility of Mysore. Her mother, Aura Ray Baker, a young American. Noor grows up surrounded by mysticism, music, and Eastern tales. From childhood, she plays the harp and piano and devours books of poetry. The family soon moves to London and later to Suresnes, near Paris. Noor spends her youth between Debussy's sheet music and fairy tales she writes herself. In that imaginative world, nobody could have foreseen that this shy, dreamy woman would become one of Britain's first wireless spies in occupied France. But history strikes violently in 1940. Germany invades France. Noor and her family flee to England at the last moment, settling in Oxford. At 26, she makes an unexpected decision: enlist to fight Nazism. Her motivation isn't ambition. Noor is a pacifist by conviction, raised in Sufism, which preaches spiritual unity. But the Nazi brutality against Jews and occupied peoples cuts deep. She feels she cannot stand by. She first joins the WAAF, the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, where she learns Morse code. Her piano skills translate into nimble fingers on the key. She can transmit up to 120 characters a minute, an exceptional speed. The SOE takes notice. In 1942, Noor enters SOE's secret training program. In Scotland, one instructor notes, she has extraordinary calm, though lacks aggressive instinct. On the firing range, her marksmanship is poor. In field exercises, she seems distracted. Many trainers doubt her, but on the radio, she shines. Patient, precise, tireless. One supervisor writes in her file, Noor lacks aptitude for violence, but shows remarkable determination. She could be useful as an operator. On June 16, 1943, Noor parachutes into a field near Angers, France. She is the first female radio operator SOE sends into occupied territory. Her code name, Madeleine. Her network, Prosper, already heavily compromised by the Gestapo. Paris, 1943. A city under tension. The Gestapo watches every station, every post office. Radio operators are their prime prey. Black vans patrol the streets with antennae, hunting signals. A transmission longer than 20 minutes can be triangulated with deadly accuracy. Noor's orders are clear: establish contact between London and the Paris resistance. She carries a 30-pound portable radio packed into a suitcase. Each time she transmits, she assembles the antenna, hooks up the battery, and taps furiously on the key. She knows each beep could seal her fate. Only weeks after her arrival, disaster strikes. The Prosper network is dismantled by the Gestapo. Dozens of agents are arrested. Noor is left alone, the last operator still free in Paris. London orders her to return, but she refuses. If I leave, the Paris resistance will fall silent. For months, Noor shifts from one safe house to another. She lives in attics, basements, borrowed rooms. She drags her radio across patrolled streets, sending vital reports on convoys, factories, troop movements. Her courage astonishes everyone around her. A British officer would later recall, she became the backbone of communications in Paris. Without her, we'd have been blind. On October 13, 1943, Noor is betrayed and arrested in Paris. She is taken to Fresnes prison, interrogated brutally. She never cooperates, never reveals codes or names. She even tries to escape twice, once climbing onto the roof with fellow prisoners before being caught again. The Germans label her extremely dangerous. In November 1943, they transfer her to Pforzheim prison in Germany, maximum security. She spends 10 months there, shackled hand and foot in isolation. September 1944, Noor and 3 companions, Madeleine Damamont, Yolande Beekman, and Eliane Plewman, are taken to Dachau concentration camp. At dawn on September 13th, they are marched into the yard. The guards execute them with a bullet to the back of the head. A survivor would later recall that Noor's last word was clear and firm: liberty. After the war, Noor Inayat Khan was awarded Britain's George Cross and France's Croix de Guerre. In 2012, a bronze statue was unveiled in Gordon Square, London. Her face looks forward, serene, as if still listening for the echo of the radio she never stopped transmitting. Noor, the Sufi princess, the musician who became a spy, fulfilled her mission with absolute loyalty. Her life was short, but her example carries a signal as strong as any transmission. Freedom is worth defending, even at the highest price. Paris, 1921. In a small apartment in the French capital, Violette Reine Elizabeth Bushell is born. Her father, an Englishman and veteran of the Great War, her mother, French. The family later moves to London. Violette grows up bilingual, quick-witted, with a lively spirit that draws everyone's attention. At 19, she meets Violette Szabo, a dashing officer of the French Foreign Legion. They marry in 1940, right in the storm of the German invasion. Soon after, Etienne departs to fight in North Africa. In October 1942, at the Battle of El Alamein, he is killed. Violette is left a widow at only 21, with a baby daughter, Tanya. The loss devastates her, but it also gives her purpose. Someone in Baker Street notices her profile. Young, bilingual, driven by a deep personal wound against the Nazis. She is recruited by the Special Operations Executive. In the Scottish training grounds, Violette surprises her instructors. Petite in stature, but her endurance is remarkable. She runs miles through the rain without complaint. She learns to handle the Sten submachine gun with astonishing accuracy. She excels at improvised explosives, ambush tactics, and hand-to-hand combat. One report reads, "Displays exceptional courage. Learns quickly. Could serve as a patrol leader." Her code name, Louise. In April 1944, she's sent on her first mission to occupied Brittany. She works as courier and coordinator for railway sabotage. After several weeks, she returns to England aboard a Lysander plane. June 7, 1944, the day after D-Day. Violette parachutes into the Limoges region alongside Captain Philippe Lieffer. Their mission, rebuild the local resistance, shattered by arrests and executions. With flawless French, Violette introduces herself to farmers and railway workers as London's liaison. She pedals dozens of miles, carrying messages. She helps coordinate ambushes against German convoys. For days, she keeps alive a sabotage network vital to slowing Wehrmacht reinforcements on their way to Normandy. June 10th. Traveling by car through the countryside, they encounter a German checkpoint at Salon-la-Tour. Outnumbered, Violette orders Lua and another companion to escape. She stays behind to cover them. With her Sten gun, she opens fire from the roadside, buying precious minutes. The Germans hit back hard. Out of ammo, she is captured after a fierce fight. Taken first to Limoges, then Paris, Violette is interrogated by the Gestapo. She gives nothing away. A German officer, impressed, writes in his report, "Very brave. Resistant to interrogation. Does not cooperate." In August 1944, she is deported to Ravensbrück, the women's concentration camp. There she shares a barrack with other SOE agents like Denise Bloch and Lillian Rolfe. The conditions are inhuman: hunger, cold, forced labor. And yet witnesses remember her spirit. She cheered others, shared scraps of bread, cared for the weakest. On February 5, 1945, with the Third Reich collapsing, the SS execute Violette and her two companions, a shot to the back of the head in a corner of the camp. She was 23. After the war, Violette Szabo was awarded the George Cross, Britain's highest decoration for civilian bravery, and France's Croix de Guerre. In 1946, her daughter Tanya, just 4 years old, received the medal on her mother's behalf from King George VI. Decades later, in Herefordshire, England, a museum was opened in her honor. At the entrance, a simple inscription sums up her legacy. She died for freedom. Violette, the young widow who never lost her smile, proved that resistance could live in a fragile body with an indestructible spirit. Amiens, France, April 28, 1912. Odette Marie Céline Brierly is born. Her childhood is scarred by early loss. Her father dies in World War I when she is just 4. Her mother raises her in austerity, instilling duty and resilience. In 1931, Odette marries a British officer, Roy Sansom, and moves to England. They have 3 daughters. Her life seems destined for quiet domesticity, until war drags her toward an unthinkable fate. In 1942, the British government issues a call. Native French speakers are needed to aid the Allied cause. Odette responds with a letter offering photographs of the French coast to help future operations. That letter lands in SOE hands. Her fluency in French, knowledge of the terrain, and determination make her an ideal candidate. Soon she is contacted and, without her family knowing the full details, recruited as an agent. Her daughters are left with relatives. Odette departs in tears, but later explains her choice with a phrase she would repeat: "I could not stay home while others died for our freedom." Training is grueling. Odette lacks Violette Szabo's physical stamina or Noor Inayat Khan's technical gift, but she compensates with practical intelligence and unshakable resolve. She learns codes, sabotage techniques, weapons handling. Instructors note, not strong, but exceptional in spirit. November 1942, she is sent to France. Her mission: join the Spindle Network, led by Peter Churchill. No relation to Winston, though the surname would prove useful as cover. Odette works as courier, cycling long distances, carrying documents, arranging contacts. Her cover: a woman visiting sick relatives. With a kind smile and flawless French, she slips past German checkpoints. Between Odette and Peter Churchill, a close bond develops, professional and personal. Together, they coordinate arms drops from England and support the Maquis. But in April 1943, the Gestapo closes in. On the 16th, at a villa near Saint-Goriot, Odette and Peter are arrested by Hugo Bleicher, a skilled agent hunter. Odette is separated and interrogated at Fresnes prison in Paris. There begins one of the harshest ordeals any SOE agent would face. The Gestapo uses ruthless methods: sleep deprivation, beatings, red-hot irons. They want names, codes, addresses. Weakened, disfigured, Odette clings to a strategy. She insists Peter Churchill is Winston's nephew. The lie protects him, as the Germans think he could be valuable for bargaining. Despite unbearable pain, Odette never reveals details of the Spindle network. Later, a German officer would admit, the woman showed superhuman resistance. In 1944, she is deported to Ravensbrück concentration camp north of Berlin. A camp built for tens of thousands that at its peak held 120,000 women, most of them European resistance fighters. Odette arrives, marked as high-value prisoner. She's thrown into isolation. A freezing cell, 1 blanket, meager rations. She suffers pneumonia, tuberculosis, gangrene. At times, she believes she will die, but holds on for her daughters. Unlike many of her comrades, she is not executed. The Churchill lie still shields her. The Germans hope to use her as a hostage in negotiations with the Allies. April 1945. As the Third Reich collapses, Ravensbrück becomes hell. Thousands of prisoners are executed to erase evidence. Gravely ill, Odette is kept alive in special cells. On April 30th, the camp is liberated by the Red Army. Odette is rescued, barely more than skin and bone. She weighs under 30 kilos, but she survives. After months of recovery, she becomes one of the few SOE agents to testify at Nazi war crimes trials. She recounts with precision the tortures, the horrors of Ravensbrück, the brutality of the Gestapo. Her testimony helps convict several perpetrators. In 1946, she received the George Cross, Britain's highest award for civilian bravery, presented in a solemn ceremony. She was also awarded France's Légion d'honneur. Her personal life changed. She divorced Roy Sansom and later married Peter Churchill. The marriage wouldn't last, but her bond with him is inseparable from the memory of the war. For decades, Odette lived in England as a public figure. She gave talks, attended commemorations, and insisted on remembering those who didn't return. She died in 1995 at the age of 82. Odette Sansom's story differs from Noor's or Violette's. She didn't die on mission, she survived, but she paid a devastating physical and emotional price to do so. Her endurance under torture, her refusal to give in, became a model of human dignity. At Ravensbrück, many remembered her slight figure, wrapped in blankets, head held high. Proof that even in the heart of hell, willpower can outlast the body. Today, on British and French memorials, her name stands beside Noor's and Violette's. Different fates, one legacy, the conviction that freedom is defended even from a dark cell. But their individual stories were pieces on a larger board. The SOE's networks, its triumphs and betrayals, drew a secret war where every move was a deadly gamble. How were those networks woven? Which mistakes cracked them apart? And what part did insider betrayals play? The war Noor, Violette, and Odette fought wasn't one of trenches and tanks. It was waged with envelopes hidden on bicycles, clandestine radios tapping in garrets, and rail lines blown with malleable charges. An invisible war to most, yet as decisive as the battles in Normandy or the desert. At the heart of that fight were the resistance networks. London called them circuits. Clusters of agents, local contacts, and helpers operating in defined areas. Each network had a leader, a radio operator, several couriers and saboteurs. Their code names sounded harmless: Prosper, Physician, Cart, Spindle. But behind them lay dozens, sometimes hundreds of lives. Building a network was a lethal balancing act. Too many members, and infiltration was inevitable. Too tight-knit, and it lacked strength. Leaders had to coordinate parachute drops, print leaflets, organize safe houses, all under the Gestapo's constant gaze. A single mistake could be fatal. A transmission that ran too long, an unverified rendezvous, a password used incorrectly. In days, the Gestapo could pull one thread and drag dozens of resistors into its net. The most tragic example was the Prosper network in Paris. Created in 1942, it became the SOE's largest structure in France, with links to Lyon, Tours, and Bordeaux. Its leaders, Francis Soutel and André Borel, seemed untouchable. But in 1943, the Gestapo planted a double agent. In June, Soutel was arrested. Dozens followed. Noor Inayat Khan, newly arrived, suddenly found herself the last free operator in the capital. London sensed catastrophe, but kept her on the air, the only surviving line of communication. Noor held out alone for months until her capture in October. Prosper's collapse exposed how fragile these structures were. One betrayal, and an entire network could be reduced to rubble. One of the most controversial names was Henri Dericourt, a French pilot who worked with the SOE to arrange clandestine landings in French fields. During the war, he performed efficiently, but after liberation, doubts surfaced. Was he actually a Gestapo double agent? Some accused him of passing information that helped destroy Prosper. Others claim he was playing a triple game, feeding the Germans just enough to shield larger British operations. The mystery was never fully resolved. For agents on the ground, these intrigues were invisible. They lived knowing that any meeting might include a traitor. Every operation demanded perfect choreography. London sent small, quiet Lysander aircraft to pick up agents from improvised fields. One misaimed flashlight and a pilot could miss the mark and fall into German hands. Weapons and explosives arrived in parachuted containers. They had to be recovered in the dark, hidden in barns, parceled out to the Maquis. Each drop was a race against dawn. Radio operators were the weak link. They knew the codes and carried the messages. The Gestapo sent out black vans with antennas to hunt signals. If a transmission ran past 20 minutes, the Germans could pinpoint the site. Noor knew it. Every tap of her key was a suspended sentence. Many colleagues were seized with their sets still warm. Backed by the SOE, the Maquis hit rail lines, ammunition dumps, and truck columns. Each blast delayed reinforcements headed for the Normandy front. But reprisals were savage. In June 1944, after a train was blown up at Toul, the SS executed 99 hostages in revenge. At Oradour-sur-Glane, they massacred 642 civilians. The agents knew every tactical success could unleash hell on innocents, a moral burden almost impossible to bear. And yet they pressed on, because every hour's delay for German reinforcements meant lives saved on the beaches of Normandy, in England's skies. Women agents were especially effective as couriers. On bicycles, they crossed entire towns with documents tucked into bread baskets. They used invisible ink, microfilm rolled into pencils, and codes hidden in poems. Often their strongest weapon was social invisibility. A German officer might suspect a young man with an English accent, but rarely a woman carrying vegetables to market. Through that crack of underestimation slipped Noor, Violette, Odette, and so many others. The Gestapo wielded torture and blackmail. Some captives broke, others were forced to write letters that lured comrades into traps. The fear of infiltration never let up. In this world of shadows, loyalty was the only compass. Odette endured inhuman torment rather than betray her network. Noor chose death over giving up a code. Violette fought with her stand to the last round. Even so, networks fell. The secret war was a chessboard where every victory came at the cost of irreplaceable lives. When the war ended, SOE files recorded cold numbers. About 430 agents were sent to France. Around 50 were women, nearly 40 were captured, and a third executed. Statistics are impersonal. Behind them are names, faces, interrupted lives. Noor betrayed in Paris. Violette executed at Ravensbrück. Odette scarred for life. The Shadow War wasn't won with spectacular battles, but with small acts of resistance, human chains that kept hope of liberation alive. And even in their darkest endings, those agents left a legacy. Against a regime bent on erasing identities, they affirmed theirs with courage. The liberation of France in 1944 marked the end of one chapter in that secret struggle. But one question remains. What becomes of their sacrifice when the guns fall silent? May 1945. Europe celebrates the end of the war. In London, bells peal. In Paris, crowds flood the Champs-Élysées. Yet amid the joy, there are absences no celebration can fill. thousands of SOE agents never return. Of the 39 women sent to France, 13 die in action or in camps. Among them, Noor Inayat Khan, executed at Dachau, Violette Szabo, executed at Ravensbrück, and, surviving among ghosts, Odette Sansom, marked forever by prison and torture. Their paths look different, but they converge on a single lesson: human courage in the face of totalitarianism. After the war, the British and French governments honored their sacrifice. Noor received posthumously the George Cross, Britain's highest award for civilian valor, and the Croix de Guerre. Violette received the same distinctions. Odette, a survivor, was decorated in person in 1946. The ceremonies were solemn and intimate. At Buckingham Palace, little Tanya Szabo, 4 years old, accepted the medal on behalf of her mother. King George VI leaned down and murmured words of comfort. That image, a decorated orphan child, captures both the tragedy and the greatness of that generation. Time passes, but memories remain. In 1991, the SOE Memorial was unveiled in Valence, France, dedicated to agents who fell on French soil. The names of Noor, Violette, and Odette are among those honored. At London's Imperial War Museum, galleries on the secret war display radios like Noor's, messenger bicycles like Violette's, and prison letters like Odette's, simple objects holding extraordinary lives. In 2012, Princess Anne unveiled a bronze statue of Noor Inayat Khan in Gordon Square, London, the first statue in Britain dedicated to an Asian woman of the Second World War. In Herefordshire, England, a museum bears the name of Violette Szabo. Visitors walk through rooms with photographs, medals, and a replica Lysander plane. At Ravensbrück, every May 8th, fresh flowers appear before plaques honoring Odette and all the prisoners. Their stories echo in culture as well. Books, films, and documentaries keep their memory alive. In 1950, Odette was released, with Anna Neagle portraying Sansom. Odette herself supervised scenes to ensure accuracy. In 1958, the novel Carve Her Name with Pride brought Violette's life to the screen, with Virginia McKenna in the lead role. These portrayals, though dramatized, help new generations learn their names. Noor, Violette, and Odette became symbols of female resistance, though none of them would ever have called herself a heroine. Odette used to say, "We did nothing extraordinary. We only did what had to be done." But their legacy isn't only heroic, it's also unsettling. Their missions were nearly suicidal. Many inside the SOE knew that sending them to France meant sending them to likely death. Was it just? Or were they pawns sacrificed on a larger chessboard? The SOE also clashed with other agencies like MI6 and the regular armed forces. Its irregular methods, sabotage, assassinations, bombings, sparked ethical debates. How far can morality bend in an occupied land? The agents themselves faced dilemmas. Violette knew her sabotage could bring reprisals on civilians. Noor, a pacifist at heart, took up a symbolic weapon against her own beliefs. Odette endured torture, knowing that her silence might condemn others to die. These dilemmas don't diminish their courage, they humanize it. They remind us they weren't superheroes, but people making impossible choices. Looking back today, their examples transcend the Second World War. Noor, daughter of an Indian Sufi and an American, embodies diversity in the fight against fascism. Violette, a young widowed mother, shows how personal grief can fuel collective action. Odette, the scarred survivor, teaches that resistance can be quiet, but relentless. Their stories speak of gender equality before the phrase even existed. At a time when women were expected to stay behind the lines, they proved they could run radios, handle weapons, and withstand interrogation as fiercely, or more fiercely, than men. By the late 20th century, When the war seemed distant, historians began reclaiming their legacy with rigor, not as romantic legends, but as real historical figures with virtues and contradictions. Testimonies, German files, and SOE records confirm their place in history. Today, whether in London, Paris, or Ravensbrück, their memory endures. Their names are no longer whispers in secret files, but emblems carved in stone. The legacy of Noor, Violette, and Odette isn't just that of three brave women. It's the reminder that Europe's freedom was also secured by those who never wore an official uniform, those who walked with lipstick in their pockets and impossible missions in their hearts. The lipstick spies weren't poster heroines or romantic characters. Noor, Violette, and Odette were women with fear, with doubts, with scars. But in a time when passivity meant complicity, they chose to act. Noor, the mystical princess, accepted a mission against her pacifist nature. She carried a radio like a portable piano and played the most dangerous melody of all, the Morse code, under pursuit. Betrayed and executed. But her last word, liberty, still echoes like an anthem. Violette, the young widow, turned the pain of her husband's death into fury against tyranny. In the woods of Limoges, with a Sten gun, she fought on to buy her comrades time to escape. Her life was short, but her courage lit everyone around her. Odette, mother of three, endured the cruelest torture without yielding a single name. In Ravensbrück's cells, she learned that willpower can outlast the body. She was freed with physical and emotional scars, but her dignity intact. Three different paths, three faces of the same courage. It would be easy to cast them as steel myths, without fear or weakness. But the truth is more powerful. They were human. They cried for their children, doubted their training, trembled at checkpoints. And precisely because of that, their choice to act is overwhelming. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward in spite of it. Their legacy also raises uneasy questions. How many missions were truly necessary? How many lives were lost to miscalculations or betrayal? How far did London go in knowingly sending young women to near certain death? These questions are legitimate and part of the maturity with which history must be faced. Honoring their sacrifice doesn't mean ignoring the dilemmas. It means learning from them. Today, in Gordon Square, Noor's statue still seems to listen for an invisible message. In Herefordshire, Violette's museum opens its doors each year to school children who discover that war was not only a man's affair. In Ravensbrück, the fresh flowers on the plaques remind us that such suffering must never return. These memorials are not dead stone. They are calls to active memory. They say, look at what they did. Remember what they endured. Ask yourself what you would do. In occupied Europe, the Nazis tried to impose an iron order where everything was controlled, obedience absolute. But a woman's hands on a telegraph key, a bicycle carrying a hidden envelope, a voice refusing to break under torture, were enough to prove that no regime is invincible. The lipstick in their pockets was an everyday detail, almost trivial. Yet in those same women lived both the ordinary and the extraordinary, the appearance of normality and the hidden fire of resistance. More than 80 years have passed. The world has changed, but the lesson remains urgent. When violence, intolerance, or authoritarianism resurface in new forms, the memory of Noor, Violette, and Odette reminds us. Human dignity is not negotiable. They didn't choose the circumstances of their time. They didn't seek war, but when history knocked at their door, they answered yes. A yes that still challenges us today. And now, facing their lives, their deaths, their resistance, one inevitable question remains. Because the story of the spies with lipstick doesn't belong only in museums or archives. It's a story about us, about what it means to be free, about what it takes to act when everything around you says surrender. Even in the darkest night, there are always those who choose to spark a light. Noor, Violette, and Odette did. May their memory continue to be light for us. If this story inspired you, challenged you, or made you see the Second World War differently, it would be an honor to have you join our growing community. Subscribing isn't just a click. It's a way to support more powerful stories, more forgotten voices, more truth from the past. So if you believe these stories matter, hit that subscribe button and let's keep building this journey together. And don't forget to leave a comment. We read them all, and we love hearing your thoughts. Until next time, keep exploring history with Epic War. Keep asking questions. Keep seeking the truth.